Welcome to Wellbeing Wednesdays with Harvinder Narula on BW Wellbeing World. My guest on this show is Dr. Rachna Khanna Singh, who is a mental health professional currently heading the Department of Holistic Medicine and Mental Wellness at the Artemis Hospital, Gurgaon. She's also the founder of the Mind and Wellness Studio, focusing on mental wellness and relationships. She is a BHMS graduate from Nehru Medical College, then built her career in holistic health, and now has over 20 years of experience with lots of awards and recognition to her credit. So, welcome, Rachna, to BW Wellbeing World. It's such a pleasure to have you with us. You know, I remember when I was talking to you last time, we realized that, mental well-being, mental strength actually touches every aspect of our life. It is a part of who we are. It is a part of our being. And we respond to situations, people, based on what our perspective to various things are. So let me talk about generational gap. When we are growing up, we remember we were talking about generational gap and we felt that we were not being understood by our parents. As in when we grew, when we have our kids, we now feel that we are not being understood by our kids. But the fact is, even the kids are feeling that, they are not being understood by their parents or us. The challenge to the kids today that they're facing is that they have access to everything on just a click of a button. What do you think needs to be done at both generational levels to be understood by each other?
Firstly, Harvinder, thank you so much for having me here. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you, and I'm, looking forward to having this wonderful conversation. And I hope it, puts some sort of, some sort of a carpet for others to understand. To also, and also, it's an eye-opening conversation, which is more of ideation to understand what is really happening in, the world today, and specifically more pan India, because at a desk like ours, we see people from morning till night in the clinics, and in the hospitals, and we are exposed to people from. I think my youngest patient is, if I may say so, patient, because now we changed the parlance, where now mental wellness experts, we call them either clients or guests sometimes, because that's how people like to be addressed. So is the youngest one is as young as 5, and the oldest one is as old as 85. And सबसे बड़ी, where I feel the biggest challenge I also feel where we have is the younger generation. Is exactly bang on what you put is the other kids. We people have seen, you and I have seen a beautiful blend of where we've seen the transition of us moving from a physical world to a virtual world. We know both the worlds. We hopefully have the understanding of the pros and cons of both the worlds. But having said that, the younger generation, you see, what happens with them is they have just been raised in a virtual world. For them, they do not know a world without gadgets. They have no idea what that world is about. And today we're not talking about a generation. When we used to talk about earlier generation, you talk 10, 15 years. Now every 5, 7 years, there's a generation skip. It's so rapid. You speak to today a 10-year-old, they, or a 12-year-old, or 15-year-old. Now every time we have a 15, 16-year-old, I tell them, look, you are to me as good as an adult, and I'm going to treat you like an 18-year-old, because that's their their EQ, their IQ. It all resonates to that kind of a platform. So yes, there are challenges at both ends. Generation gap has always been a challenge. We come from a day, we come from a day and age where our fathers were more, let's say, they were coming as figures. They were coming as they were not coming as friends. We were looking up to our fathers. We were looking up to them as providers, as supporters. But somehow, I may not use the word dictatorial is a very firm word, but a lot of people felt that about their parents. But they certainly didn't feel that they were at the same level. Then came a slightly younger generation where everybody got enlightened and said, no, we want to be friends with our children, right? That was the next step round. I said, no, because we were not treated like that, and that is what we wish. So we want to be friends with our children. Now comes a generation even below that saying, oh my God, now we are friends with our children, and they want to come and discuss everything, and they want to know about our married lives, and they want to know why I am acting like this, and how I should be speaking to my partner. And they come and talk as a complete equal. So somewhere I feel that, certain amount of boundaries, certain amount of respect, certain amount of understanding that there is a difference in the age needs to be brought forward to the younger generation also. So कहीं ना कहीं हम वो एक बहाव में कि ये मेरे दोस्त नहीं, मेरे 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 पेरेंट्स ने मेरे को समझा नहीं, मेरे दोस्त नहीं बन सके, तो अब मैं बिल्कुल दोस्त बन जाती हूँ। तो जो बहुत सारे दोस्त बन गए, वो कह रहे हैं हमको, ये सोचते हैं कि ये तो हमारी हमारी हम उम्र के भी नहीं है, हमको 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 ज्यादा लेक्चर मिलते हैं, तो वी डोंट नो हाउ टू रिएक्ट, एंड वी डोंट गेट द रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ एन एल्डर और अ वाइजर पर्सन, or the acknowledgement. It's not even the respect. So the younger generation now, it I would say they're still grappling. It's a confused generation, although many people say, would beg to differ and say that, oh, they're very clear in their viewpoints. They may be very clear in their viewpoints on certain issues, but the world is moving so fast, the lifestyles are changing so rapidly that that may not hold of value.
Rachna, you said you were talking of friends and you were talking about creating boundaries. One thing that comes into my mind, and and I've been deliberating on this particular thing myself, is that there are a lot of choices we make for our kids. There are decisions that we are taking that is impacting their lives. And some of these are tough decisions, and much against their wishes. But we think or we assume that we are doing it for their benefit. You know, could be changing their school, putting them in a boarding school, or stopping them from doing something that they feel strongly about. And then we feel fearful also that the child, we don't know, because there's a lot of conversation around mental health which is happening, and it is brought
Correct.
fear in the mind of a parent that
Correct.
I don't know what my child is going to create in his mind about why we did this. What do you think is the right thing to do? Do you take those tough decisions? And if you were to take those tough decisions, how do you explain to the child that it is for their benefit?
So, Harvinder, firstly, I'd like to say that we are talking in general children, but we would like to break it down to, let's say there are growing kids lesser than 10. Then you come to a different age, which is a teenage, where the individual starts to develop a sense of individuality or a sense of independence. Now that starts to, there is where the dilemma starts for the parent, kitna chhode or kitna pakde. And today's teen is a very sharp teen, is a very informed teenager. They have everything at the drop of a button. They have everything available. They'll be rattling down statistics more than you and I would know. They would be knowing technology more than you and I would know. So they, at some space, they are maturing a lot faster, right? They're a very tech savvy generation, and we come to a slightly older, let's say early 20s. At the end of the day, even they look at back at their parents for guidance. Although we people still look at places to our parents, for them to be around and for them to be guiding us at certain places. But early 20s also is, they still look at, still look at some input from their parents, from the, let's say, with respect to what partner to choose, career path, important decisions of marriage, important decisions of finances, and so on, children, and so on, child rearing, and so on and so forth. So, having said that, all of this is still, like I said, everyone is a separate generation altogether. So, but if I were to answer in commonality, what are we to do? How are we to bridge the gap? Is what I understand you're saying, Harbinder.
Yes, and also, when we take these tough decisions for them, how do we explain to them that this is for their benefit?
Okay, so first thing is, before, let's go a couple of steps back. to just understand that before taking these tough decisions, am I, maybe there are a few questions I can ask myself as a parent. Am I in a position to be, to understand my child? सबसे पहली चीज ये है, can I, am I in a position to empathize with my child? All right, I may not understand everything about my child, which is absolutely fine. We don't need to understand everything about everybody. I mean, about each person in any which way. We have to keep certain percentage to each person to be their own individual self. But the understanding, am I able to understand? Am I able to converse? So conversation, communication is going to lead to understanding. कहाँ से आएगा? I have parents coming at suddenly at 13, 14 years, when the child is 13, 14 years, knocking our doors and saying, बच्चा हमसे बात नहीं करता है. आपसे बच्चा कैसे बात करेगा जब आपने उसके साथ पूरे पूरे 10-12 साल में तो आपने उसके साथ बहुत कम टाइम बिताया, आपने जनरल कॉन्वर्सेशंस किए ही नहीं. So that needs to start seeping in literally from day one. And it's not only the mother's task. If we were to go a generation back, okay, homemakers hain, so they are to be closer to the, that's kids, that doesn't hold value anymore. It's, now people are doing enough good co-parenting. I see that happening every day. So people are cognizant, men are cognizant, people are very, I mean, partners are cognizant of making sure that they have a small family, a nuclear family, one child, two child. They want to raise them beautifully. They are very involved. I see the parents of today, the generation say younger than us, they are very involved parents. So like I said, first is understand your child, have conversations, have a lot of conversations. The conversation about a correct partner, a correct boarding school, a correct boyfriend girlfriend, a correct religion choice, a correct sexual preference. All these are questions which we didn't think of. But this is what they're talking about. Leave aside things like marriage. These are the things which are crossing their head. And a correct career path. Do do we think these are going to happen at a one time, two time, three time table conversations? No, these have to start happening on a daily basis with very simple methods what we used to follow, that please ensure in your family you have one meal a day together. And when you're talking about nothing but normal things as to what happened in today's day, what was in the newspapers. We a lot of times we teaching children simply by example, just by seeing what's happening in the current affairs today. We are talking about good touch, bad touch. We're talking about how the gory rapes are, how the gory the crime scene is, how people are murdering their partners. Now, if we are not discussing this with a child, if it's just a normalized conversation at home, or you even see today the movies, you're discussing what happened in the movie. Why did he behave like that? Why did she behave like that? Look at the recent movie Animal. Any movie, you pick up a easier movie like Rocky and Rani, which everybody's seen. It's a family movie. You learn so much from that movie by itself. So these are the ways you converse with your child to understand your child. It's not a one time, two time, three time conversation. Now let's have a talk. That talk time doesn't exist with this generation anymore. जब आप समझेंगे बच्चे को, फिर उसके बाद में आप उसको जो, I will not say decision, Harvinder, I will say suggestion. Thereby, I'm in a position to give some suggestions to my child to understand what would they like to pick or not. And once my job as a parent, besides giving them their value system, that is certainly my job. But my job as a parent is to be there for the child. Second thing. Third job, my job as a parent is to give them the empathy. If my child is saying, no, boss, I want to be a dancer. You're like, भाई अभी कौन सा करियर कैसे बनाएंगे इसका, आपने तो कभी डांस नहीं किया, या आपने आप कह रहे ड्रमर बनना है. I have n number of cases cracked IIT sitting here saying, नहीं मुझको तो ये करना ही नहीं था, मुझको तो ड्रमर बनना है. I want to let go of my seat. I have n number. Someone who's come, who's just about got the first job, left to go to some spiritual place, and said, no, I'm giving this up because this is my calling. This is my calling. Now I've stopped everything. I want to I want, so there are different careers, different things. Uh, the 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 menu is too vast today. That's the problem. There is an information overload pouring from everywhere. And specifically to this newer generation, it's just streaming. It's like just streaming. The other day, I was talking, on my show, and I was, sharing this information that, every day the our brain has almost close to about 70,000 thoughts coming every day, right? And a normal Indian is consuming close to 74 GB of data every day, which is equals to about 16 movies per day. That's crazy stats, right? And I was like, whoa, and where are this is that coming from? That's coming from not only our screens and TV and laptop and phones, it's also coming from the news, it's coming from the billboards, it's coming from everything. So that's the kind of information your children are getting. In fact, average child is consuming up to 3 to 4 hours of screen time every day on an average. Can you imagine the kind of peer pressure overload, comparisons, self-esteem issues, relationship issues, so on and so forth, confusion to the galore. सो ऐसे बच्चों को आप बोल रहे हैं कि मैं एक डिसीजन दे दूं, तो डिसीजन तो ना दे ही सकते. Suggestion, we can talk a lot about what are the pluses, what are the minuses. Like I said, it's very common for children to say today, no, this is my sexuality. You don't know. They're saying you don't know to the parent. They're saying, I want to pick this career. I know better. I feel like this. Another thing is, my mental health will get disturbed. So now, the moment the child says that to the parent obviously gets very frightened, and then they run to us and they say that, bhai se baat kar lo, because rightly so, parents are also very concerned because of, you please see the number of cases of depression, and it's, we do know it's on the rise, and I don't want to spill stats here because they're very, very not nice. They're pretty gory. And as far as students go, there's one suicide every hour in India of a student. So we come with some genes, and then we keep accumulating our experiences. Most of our experiences, as we're small little kids, they are coming from the home. What we see, we are absorbing how people are eating, what's going on, what's the value system. You're teaching by example. चल रहा है घर के अंदर. So if that is what we are being taught, if that is what, then that needs to be straightened also at home. Thereby come back to simple things like, please eat together at a table. Please don't scream and shout when husband and wife have a argument, which everybody does. Please learn not to, kindly do not involve children. When I'm talking about decision making, for God's sake, don't drag your child in and say, कौन है better parent? मम्मी ने सही बोला कि मैंने सही बोला है आज? आज बता. Kindly don't do that. Please, if your child is saying, I'm not feeling well, I'm not feeling mentally okay, I'm feeling sad, kindly don't go on and on telling the child repeatedly that हमारे साथ भी होता था, इसमें क्या बड़ी बात है, चलो कोई फ्रेंड से बात कर लो, ये क्या होता है, ऐसे ही हम तुम ऐसे, अरे एक ब्रेकअप ही तो हुआ है, इतनी क्या बड़ी बात हो गई यार, हम तो बड़े, चल चल छोड़. Yes, you should give them a positive light. I'm not denying it. But kindly, if the child is coming again and again and crying out for help, please understand that the child is crying out for help. Do not dismiss their emotions. They may be children, but they're as good as adults. So kindly understand the emotion, what they are saying. Again, what I'm saying, coming back to what we are saying, that our childhood defines us. All these formulate into who I'm going to be, a human being, who I'm going to be as a person later. Each experience, what I was at 15, I'm not at 20. What I was at 20, I'm not at 30. I hopefully keep getting wiser. And these experiences are what we gather. So let's try to keep the experiences more pleasant with them. emotion, talking about the EQ. Today, see, schools are also talking about this every day. Every day, how? So, simple thing, even at the dinner table, I'm not saying you do it every day, but maybe once a week, do something like what were three good points, everybody around the table. What were three good things happened to you this week and three bad things? And I always tell the parent, please start with yourself. And kindly don't use this as a gimmick to know कि उसके friend की life में क्या हो रहा है, और is my child gay, is what I have, like, all parents coming and saying, I don't know, उसने ये बोल दिया है. People are concerned about things. People are concerned about, is my child in a wrong relationship? Is my child picking up a wrong career? नहीं, 12th में खराब marks आ गए, अभी आगे कैसे करेंगे, etc., etc. We as parents obviously worry. So I'm just saying, if we are going to give their emotion enough weightage, they will give your emotion also enough weightage. If today I turn around and tell today, trust me, people ask. So we have this very favorite thing which we do with kids, that tell us three pits and three peaks. Sorry, three pits and three peaks. Every day, क्या हुआ आज? तीन अच्छी चीज बताओ, तीन तीन बुरी चीज बताओ. आप सीधा जंप करके बोलना शुरू करते हो. What are parents saying? No, no, let please have gratitude for what we've done. देखो, तुम दूसरे लोगों को देखो. Be grateful. Let's talk about gratitude. Kaha, what gratitude? They will not understand anything. Even adults like us don't understand gratitude. I tell you today, Harvinder, let's start writing a gratitude journal. Sounds super good. Can do it also, but will the emotion come in there? Until I understand it, नहीं आता, क्योंकि मुझे पिट्स ही नहीं पता है, मुझे यही नहीं पता है कम क्या है और ज्यादा क्या है. Relativity सिखाना बहुत जरूरी है. So three things I felt bad, three things I felt good. Same thing, if a parent says, I'm feeling sad today, if why am I so if so one is, please be vocal about your experiences, your emotions, your feelings. If you're going to do it, the child will mimic that automatically. But that's one edge of the problem solved.
Got it. My biggest takeaway from this conversation, what you just said, was that, you need to educate your child. You need to help them make better decisions. You need to make them accountable so that they can for themselves, make better choices. So that's a big, what I hear you say.
One thing, sorry, go on.
Yeah, please say.
No, I was just going to say that, while you were speaking, and I also thought that, when you're saying that educate them, I'm also thinking educate ourselves about how, how to express ourselves a little better, because this generation, most of us do not know our own emotion, and we don't know how to articulate.
Yeah, Rachna, you know what? Actually, if you look at ourselves, we are imposing what we were told by our parents, and we are doing the same thing and imposing that on our kids because we believed that whatever was told to us was actually good. So we are imposing our belief systems on our kids, assuming that what we know is better and is good with the right intent.
Absolutely. No one's saying you're doing anything we are doing wrong, but I'm just saying, I think maybe we should also. So I think, I personally think, I have a 20-year-old, and who can lecture me through and through, and thinks she certainly knows better. And then sometimes you have to act saying, yes, of course you know everything better than me, because you need to give them the platform as well. But having said that, as a joke, but having said that, I think what I as a parent feel that I've learned along, specifically when your child grows, you learn, and I think I've learned how to articulate my emotions.
Right.
Which we were not taught, but हम उनको सिखा तो रहे हैं, पर ऐसे written में बोल के सिखाने से कोई फायदा नहीं है. You have to teach by example. You're sitting on the table and saying, eat your green vegetables, eat your green vegetables. सामने घी आता है, तो यार क्या बना है आज, तो फिर तो बच्चा क्या सीखेगा?
Actually, you're right. Rachna, another challenge that everybody is facing, young parents are facing today, is the children getting glued onto screens. I'm sure a lot of people must be connecting to you also for this particular problem. Now, my perception is that when I look at my son is glued onto screen, and I have no problem with it because they're also learning a lot from accessing that content, probably much more than
Sure.
what we know. You know,
Sure.
but the only thing is when they get glued onto the screen, they don't know when to stop. you know so what is it that you think we can do to kind of ensure that we don't lead them to a state of addiction?
So, screen addiction is something which is a very, I think it's just taken everybody over by like a storm. And why should I say, Harbinder, children, a lot of them, a lot of adults are consumed by it.
Rashna, so I'll stop you here because my next question is about adults. So I want you to let me ask that question as well,
Okay.
so that you can answer
I
your
really
perspective
need it.
together. One is the children getting addicted to the screens. So while they are learning a lot, how can we stop them to get addicted to it so that they know when to stop? Okay, they've had 2 hours of their screen, great. Now, when coming on to adults, we are ourselves hooked onto Instagram and sometimes even LinkedIn. And we assume that, because we are on LinkedIn, so we are doing a great job, we are connecting, networking, working. But we do not realize that, it has taken away a part of our conversation time with our partners. So
Correct.
I just thought I'll bring this perspective as well, since you mentioned adults. So it's a challenge with both.
Absolutely. So I think, like Harbinder, I was just saying about, information overload. So I think we need to also understand as adults that there is a streaming in of information coming from everywhere. Now, earlier, there used to be पहले YouTube videos आए 30 minutes 40 minutes, फिर वो कंडेंस होके और छोटा हो गया, फिर वो 3 मिनट का इंस्टा का रील बन गया, अभी वो 30 सेकंड बन गया, अभी वो पता नहीं क्या बनने वाला है, राइट? सो can you see what's happening to our attention span? And even then, what are we doing? You have in shots, you have, you have यहाँ पे insta के up, you're scrolling, you have something happening on YouTube, you have something happening on Facebook. There is endless, and LinkedIn, like you're saying, very, if you go into hardcore, professional work. Having said that, and we feel connected, but having said that, we are consumed by it. So there is really no choice but to discipline yourself, to say that you somewhere need to put a cap on the number of hours we are using, because it is simply very addictive. So you see, we have a certain center in the brain, right, which gets activated, which is the reward center. So it's like the dopamine, no, jab, it's the thrill. When I get something, I see this fantastic dress which I've been eyeing forever. I suddenly see it on, I see it with the 50% off. I have that feel good factor, right? So this kind of a feel good, these kind of feel good factors, a lot of things we get instant gratification आ जाता है. तो मेरा रिवॉर्ड सेंटर ब्रेन से तो वहां से एक्टिवेटेड तो हो रहा है. वही, if we go on to ever a longer discussion ever, but it's the same difference between pleasure versus happiness. वो मुझे instant मिल रहा है वहां पे, right? The drugs, they're giving it to me. The cigarette, it's giving it to me. It's like that. So effectively, a lot of times, it is very addictive phenomena. So somewhere I have to learn to discipline. Easy to say, not easy to do. To say that I'll cut out my hours, I'll do twice a week. People have tried it in number of methods. I'll do twice or thrice a day only. I'll check my mail, but then we have notifications popping every now and then. I'll put my groups on mute. Okay, something else will pop up. I'll put this, I will only see this much. But when I see this much, I also start scrolling. So it is endless. I think what we need to understand is that why are we doing it? Because if I see it from the other end to say that आप कम करिए, इतना मत करिए, so I think yoga, आप हर आप 4 times a week 40 minutes के लिए करिए, बिल्कुल करिए, फैंटास्टिक, या जिम जाइए, वेरी गुड. बट then I start to gain an understanding, why should I do it? Then I have the motivation to do it versus someone saying कि इतना कर. So I think first is we need to understand why, as an individual level, why am I doing this? Am I sometimes doing it because um, I want to be? I could be doing it for various reasons. One, I want to be I want to be a very informed individual. So I want to know everything which is happening. Two, I if I'm a very informed individual, I feel very, so I stand somewhere and talk today, Harbinder, and you and me, we'll talk about this and that and everything because we feel we are informed, correct? That's what we've told ourselves. What does it make you feel? Validated. Simple. I'm standing in a crowd, it's making me feel validated. यार मेरे को तो ये भी पता है, ये मेरे को खुशी आ रही है, so I'm doing it for validation. So इसका मतलब मैं external चीज ये use कर रही हूँ to validate me, right? So now then I'm doing it for other stuff कि मुझे, okay, then I'm doing it for, people use it for, let's say, procurement. Let's say you're on the screens because you're buying. There's a lot of addiction on that also. Then some people on it for, let's say, games, gambling, gaming addiction, is a totally different, I mean, not totally different, it's like one aspect of it. So right now, while we're talking about information and scrolling, so I need to see what am I doing it for. Another reason why people do it, to fill their time, to stay. Then another reason is to think. They think that they're being connected to the whole वर्ल्ड. मैं उसको भी जानता हूँ, स्वीडन में भी उससे भी बात हो गई, सुबेरे रात को आज कनाडा में बात हो जाए. Okay, not bad, nothing wrong there, nothing wrong there, fantastic. We have people at the drop of the ear. What am I wanting by doing that? I am creating a community which is missing now.
Correct.
मैं उसको replicate. So मैं क्या कर, what am I doing it? So I am doing all these things for just something very basic, which all of us want, which is love. So मैं वही चीज के लिए कर रही हूँ. Actually, if you see it, चाहे मुझे community build करनी है, मुझे sense of belongingness चाहिए. कहीं पे I want. So today you have an alumni. Today you have this. Today you have college alumni. Then you have this friend circle. Then you used to stay in apartments earlier. अब उसकी community भी है, WhatsApp group. क्या है ये? कुछ खराब नहीं है. It wants me to get a sense of belonging somewhere as a human being. Other stuff what I was telling you wants me to get love. Another thing what I'm telling you wants you to get validation. ये चीजें हम external sources से ढूंढ रहे हैं. क्यों इतना ढूंढ रहे हैं? क्योंकि अब सामने नहीं है वो सब. जॉइंट फैमिली सिस्टम रहा नहीं है. आप घर के बाहर, मोस्ट प्लेसेस आई एम टेलिंग यू, घर के बाहर निकलो, यू डोंट नो हु ईच अदर इज ऑन द लेफ्ट एंड द राइट साइड, राइट? You go out to a park, you feel you are going to get robbed. You don't want to send your child there alone. You feel the child is unsafe. You feel बच्चा साइकिल पे बाहर जाता है, you are sending somebody behind saying कि भाई ठीक है, रोड पे इतने एक्सीडेंट्स हो रहे हैं, so on and so forth. These are the minuses of the, if I say so, for the globalization and the world moving so fast and so forth. I'm not against it. I'm just saying we just need a little moderation and a little balance.
Got it. And Dr. Rachna, you were talking about community and the sense of belongingness. These are very strong attributes which have suddenly gone missing. What comes to my mind also is that we always, as a society in India, we had very strong bonds with extended family. Suddenly that has gone missing. Forget about extended family. I mean, today we are not only nuclear families, we are also having one child.
Correct.
So what changed? Why did we move away from extended families? And what do you think can be done about it so that we can still rekindle the sense of belongingness and create that bond with people around us?
Harbinder, I think if I were to just put in a, I don't want to delve deeper into what changed. I think that become, that's a whole topic. But I'd say if I were to just put that into a small understanding, and that also will answer what we were talking about earlier about divorces. We never went there, but why people are separating, why people are. I think there is a lot of sense of individuality which has gone up.
Mhm.
Me, myself, and I. Right. So that's gone up a lot over the last few years. Thereby also, thereby also, me thinking that I can be sufficient for myself and putting my individual needs ahead of, let's say, couple needs, family needs, community needs. So वहां से I think वो stemming है थोड़ा सा of, that's not the only reason, but that's one of the reasons I can say from the human nature perspective. That is one of the reasons why we besides the fact, of course, we were seeing the lure from the west. We were seeing, oh wow, now I can maintain my own identity, because if you moved into a joint family, your identity became a little lesser. Vis-a-vis going into a nuclear family, my identity became larger, right? And my wants, my desires, I could express a lot more. So my individual thinking got honed, got a lot more importance. So that becomes a stronger, self becomes a stronger unit. Again, I'm not debating kya better hai, kya nahi better. I'm not going there, but I'm saying that is what possibly has happened. I come to the second part of your questions. What can be done? If I were to say solution kya hai? I mean, we're understanding this is what's going on everywhere, and we are understanding that the biggest killer is going to be by 20, I think 2040, loneliness. That is, see, mental health now, the WHO has been saying 1:4 people, one in every four people with some mental health concern on or the other for the last many years. Post COVID, it's a lot more. Of course, we don't have the new data, because it's still being collected, and they take a while. And also, but what we are seeing in our day-to-day practice, it's easily 1:3, and also the amount of reporting utna nahi hai, right? So 1:3 to aram se hai. That means three people sitting having coffee together, one is definitely going to have a mental health concern. I'm not talking about an illness necessarily, right? Now, if I'm saying that's so high, and I'm saying, what am I to do? So people are already understanding that. People have started to understand, and suddenly you have seen also, if I may say so, in the last couple of years, ever since COVID struck us, there is a general awakening to spirituality. There is a general awakening to community work, community service. We are giving equal amount of weightage to compassion to others, going out, doing work, charity, uh, helping elders, pets. Um, you'll see a lot of NGOs have always been there. I see them become a lot more active. People are wanting to put in effort there. So if I see we are somewhere wanting to move into a community system, धीरे धीरे करके, I feel that's, I hope, I really hope. I mean, I think our lives are going to pass, and I don't know what we are going to leave the generations behind with. But I really hope this comes out stronger. And I personally feel, and as a proud Indian, that I feel that we have the value system in place. I keep saying so to everybody. I mean, even to children, that we have our scriptures, we have our values in place. Thank God we all come from homes where every day हर घर में कुछ ना कुछ पाठ कुछ कुछ होता है चाहे I'm not saying that is large, small, something there, somewhere we are bowing to the universal energy. I may be an atheist, but I believe that something's making this world go round. Now, whether it's the sun, I'm, bowing to anything, that understanding that it's not me which is making it work. I'm just a minuscule part of the whole thing. So this whole thing is working in some way. So, I think we have, as an informed Indian, we've always had this knowledge of humility. We've had the knowledge of our scriptures. We have the knowledge of prayer. We have the knowledge of, we already have the knowledge of respect to the elders. All of that exists. Somewhere बीच में बहुत loss हो गया था because of the the glamour and the glitter of the West.
Right.
Now, what is happening? That whole glamour glitter तो इधर ही घूम रहा है. Everybody is coming here. All the Western people are coming here. Either they are adopting our practices. They're dying to come and adopt our practices and see. And in our lifetimes, we are seeing. I mean, from the economy perspective, you're seeing what's happening.
No, I tend to agree with you, Rachna, because uh, I find merit in when you say that people are finding different ways of rebuilding that connect. We as a generation may have missed it, and we may as a generation may have drifted apart. But I think the new generation is figuring out ways to understand that, and let's hope that this turns out to bring that
I
360-degree
think so.
change.
I
And
think so. I'll tell you what is also. Um, I tell you what is also Harbinder, making a lot of sense to everybody is because now with our economy going up, and why I'm saying that, because money makes our mind tick. Everybody's. So with our economy going up, and we are seeing the world economy going down, and we are seeing suddenly this US and America जो सबके दिमाग में भरा हुआ था, and the West, Europe, UK, far away, can't touch. Now we're seeing them crumble to human values at the end of the day, with the wars coming in and everything, and we're seeing how everybody is behaving. Right? We're seeing the politicization, we're seeing the polarization, we're seeing there's a polarized world. दिख रहा है अब सबको, और सबको दिख रहा है that we are, as we have the strength to earn that money, keeping our values intact. So I
correct.
think that is giving, I personally feel that that is giving some sort of a push to the younger generation to say that yes, we do have the correct power, do have the correct validation. See, earlier now we wanted the validation by material things because we were seeing things जो हम नहीं, we couldn't procure. We didn't have those kind of fancy, let's say, fancy holidays. We didn't have fancy clothes. We didn't have fancy everything, right? So we were running there. Now we've got everything. People are coming here to us. So that means I feel more powerful in my head. So I feel
Absolutely.
right. So I feel I have equal. I have equal to give to the world, and it's not that the West has something to give that much to me. Yes, we all have enough to give to each other, right? But I
And also,
stand with
we were following the West, and we now realize the West finds value in what we were doing.
I mean,
So,
absolutely. I mean, and you look at the eastern, like look at the east side of the world. If you see today, see Korea, see Japan, you see China. Each one of them. I'm talking about these three economies. Look at the economy and look how they are begging their people to get married,
mhm,
because all of this, we have a complete declining rate in marriage. They have a complete declining child rate. They are worried that there's only going to have a geriatric population. What's going to happen to these countries? So there's a lot going on everywhere. There's a lot happening in the world. So having said that, I think we're still have a big chance to keep this balance going. And
got it.
I'm really hoping the new generation, it's a wonderfully informed generation. They are understanding. They may have gone a little off the grid, which all of us, we have to go there to come to normalcy. I think it's just one of the elements.
Also, we feel they've got off the grid because they're outside of what our grid used to be. You know,
Correct.
so
Absolutely. So it's okay. It's okay. No, I'm saying so specifically. I'm saying so, Harvinder, because this sudden surge. There was a sudden surge. There is still is, like, let's say, relationship, the breaking of relationships, the sudden change in relationships where you are seeing. Where it was supposed to be like 20 years ago, there was supposed to be a one monogamous relationship. Suddenly we see dating platforms, like there's from hookups to everything happening, and it's open. But I still see a lot of teens tried that, done everything, coming back in their 20s, mid 20s, and saying, you know what, I think I want a monogamous relationship. Or I don't think I want to do this hookup business too more, because they've tried it. So I'm really, really, really hoping that they are coming, still understanding that the value system of the family, the value system of, the people around us, respecting people around us. I mean, every relationship, I think that's important. It's not about न्यूक्लियर में रहें, जॉइंट में रहें की बात नहीं. अगर मैं if I learn to respect my relationships around, I respect to give them time. How will I respect them if I don't give them time? I don't invest time with them. I don't invest energy with them. वहीं से आएगा ना. So that's what it is.
So, Rachna, second thing I want to speak to you about is something that we call tension.
Okay.
We are a diabetic capital of the world. More than 50% of our population is dabbling with diabetes or pre-diabetes. We have a huge population that is, facing the challenge of hypertension. So BP सबको है. And तीसरी चीज है कि fertility issues are cropping up because of the pressures that they have, mental pressures or stress that they're going through.
Correct.
जब डॉक्टर के पास जाते हैं, डॉक्टर सीधा बोलता है कि आप टेंशन मत लिया करो यार, स्ट्रेस मत लो. अब वो टेंशन कैसे ना लें, स्ट्रेस कैसे ना लें, स्ट्रेस को कैसे मैनेज करें, वो कोई नहीं बता पाता. Do you have some methods that you can share with us that how can we, I won't say get over stress, but control and manage stress? Stress सबको
Well,
होता है, लेकिन manage कैसे करना है?
I wish I had a magic wand for everybody, but I don't. But yeah, I think we all need to. I think it starts with the mantra of knowing how to de-stress, what works for you. I think that is very important. For somebody, it may be just simply coming back home or on the drive back from a stressful day, just listening to some music. For somebody, it may be just going back and playing a game of something. For somebody, it may be going into the kitchen quietly and making a nice dish. For somebody, it may be like an hour of gardening every other day. So I think we need to understand what is it that makes me de-stress. So of course there are some general things we say, वो तो हर desk से आप हर platform से हर magazine में हर podcast में, everywhere, हर Insta reel में you will hear some basics, which so there's no denying those. So number one is physical exercise. No substitute for that at all, because that releases endorphins, serotonin, besides keeping yourself physically fit. And I'm talking from the mental perspective. कोई choice ही नहीं है. 45 minutes, at least 5 times a week, some cardio in it, some passive exercises, which you could intersperse with some yogic exercise, with some simple running, walking, treadmill, whatever works for anybody. Second thing is 10 to 15 minutes of breath work every day. Uska bhi koi, I don't think there is a substitute to that, because that breath work aligns the mind and body. Now, breath work does not mean I'm saying do pranayam. Pranayam is actually one of the best though, but even the West follows their own type of breath work. Same ही है, we have in the Western world do different types of 4:4 breathing, deep breathing, n number. But having said that, 10 to 15 minutes of focused breath work, whatever you like, which allows you to stay very grounded, because your mind and body ना एक इसमें हम संयम बोलते हैं, discipline बोलते हैं, वो आ जाता है. If you do that, and about 15 minutes of mindfulness. So frankly, if you spend an hour to hour 15 every day on yourself, 5 days a week or 6 days a week, seventh, okay, take a chutti one day. Everybody wants to do their own thing. One day should be a rest day where you do nothing, with no routine, no schedule. I mean, one day we get to change how we feel, how we wear, what we do. So that's a breather by itself. So 6 days, keeping some sort of a discipline of an hour, 15 minutes hour to hour, 15 minutes, in which about 40-45 minutes of physical exercise, 10 to 15 minutes of breath work, 10 to 15 minutes of mindfulness. I'm repeatedly saying mindfulness and not meditation. Some people get super frightened saying कि हमको आता नहीं है बहुत मुश्किल. No, no, mindfulness is simple, just being there in the being here in the now. Even you do simple exercises like understanding all your five senses, and there's a lot of apps now available. And these things, if you were to do every day, this keeps you in general very good mental health. Now, research also shows us that if we indulge in about 2 to 3 hours of a hobby every week, that is known to de-stress us very, very well. So, literally dig back your old chessboards, pull out your guitar from wherever it's lying. So that me time, 2, 3 hours of time to self in a week, that gives you a lot of de-stressing hormones, a lot of joy. So this and the last, so I just said 1, 2, 3 points. So physical exercise, breath work, mindfulness, a good hobby, and fifth, and learning a new skill, not every day of course, but putting learning a new skill maybe a little bit every month, something new which keeps us excited. Even it could be simply a new dish. Everybody in COVID became the best chef possible, no? किसी ने खाना बनाया ही नहीं था, आधे लोगों ने बनाया नहीं था, only they discovered the new. So that means we have the ability. What does it show? We have the ability to try new things, to do new things. So why say no? Learn something new every, whatever you may like, that keeps our mind very fresh and challenged towards a positive activity. And lastly, and most importantly, please keep a good structure of friends and family around. I mean, that is like, there is no there uska to, again, there is no two ways over there. So some good sounding boards, we say now, pre-COVID we used to say five. If you have five people who you can call up to at any point of time, feel blessed. Now we say three. If you have three people you can call up to at any point of time for anything, please feel blessed.
Rachna, I have this thing about number instead of 3 and 5. कहीं ना बीच में 4. And I used to actually say this for a reason. I had gone and somebody passed away, and in the morning, and we were called, and I went there, and the person wasn't very social. He was a good person, but he wasn't very social, not meeting people, not connecting with people. And there were not enough people in the family to go pick him up. And that is the day when I actually used to started telling everyone, चार तो चाहिए यार, जो आपके
I
साथ
think that's a
उठाने.
thank you, Harvinder. What a wonderful thing I've learned today. That's what I said, you learn something new every day. It keeps you going, So something new, something interesting, something old, so like they would say in the Christian vows, something new, something new, read something, some amount of, by the way, also another thing I forgot to add was some amount of grounding work like prayers. uh, some people like to do a mala, some people, or just sitting down, just some people who are atheists. I'm not saying those people should pray, but if some amount of prayer, sitting down, chanting, this is just grounding. It helps us ground. 10-15 minutes of that also is a must.
Yeah. Now, Rachna, one question that I really am wishing to ask you is, since you were talking about surround yourself with people, surround yourself with good people, have a few friends. Now, a lot of us who are in the corporate world, we quit our jobs, we become entrepreneurs. And we're not used to the entrepreneurial world. We're used to large offices with hundreds of people around, and you have enough people like you to converse with, brainstorm with. Entrepreneurship is a very lonely space. You may have people working with you, but they're not the people that you would, they're not the sounding board, as you said.
Yeah.
What is the role of a family? Because, one thought that is that, मेरे पास बहुत stress है, I'm going through a financial crunch, cash flow issues. I don't know if my business is going to succeed or not. I'm getting a lot of rejection from everywhere. I'm getting a non. But if I were to share all this with my family, they would get tense because, they're not the ones who did a startup. I'm doing a startup. Now, another aspect is that a family starts saying to you that, listen, you are in a corporate world, you are getting this much of salary. Why did you quit? You're not making enough money. Why are you doing what you are doing? The reason I'm sharing both these aspects is to ask you, what is the role, or what could be the role of a family for an entrepreneur, for him or her to succeed, or at least try to make something out of the business?
It would be too cliche for me to say that be supportive. Be a supportive spouse, be a supportive child, be a supportive parent to
What
somebody who's
does
building
what
a
does
business.
this word supportive mean?
वही मैं बोल रही हूँ, it's too cliche to say that be supportive, you know. So what is supportive? So I would say keep the communication going, uh, to understand that an entrepreneur and somebody who's specifically shifted from a job where a salary is coming in to some amount of financial insecurity at some point of time or the other, because all entrepreneurs will go through some financial insecurity. I think be ready for it. And I think that is something even the entrepreneurs should, you know, it's a conversation worth having with your spouse. Because I think you need to be ready for that. I mean, we can never be ready, but at least we can prep ourselves, or we can gear ourselves to be somewhere ready to, you know, kind of support if there is a financial difficulty, you know. And thirdly, I think patience, because we need to know that, agreed, it's not non-ending, but we do need to understand that startups, entrepreneurships, they take time for it to, you know, for it to show their fruit. Fourthly, be very aware of your budgets. Please keep them in place. Please discuss budgets openly when you're moving from job, a routine job, to being an entrepreneur. Because we all have our expenses in place, and I think we need to have the family who's dependent on the finances to be on board with it. Uh, You'll have, I mean, whether you explain or they understand, but something will have to be done for them to gain an understanding. Otherwise, it can be very stressful when a person who's been earning for such a long time and gets home a salary, and people are financially dependent and is not now going to be that provider anymore. So that also starts affecting the self-worth and the self-esteem of that person after a while to come. Every startup is not going to take off. I mean, you know, you and I both know the stats there.
Yes.
So having said that, and you don't know when the funding first round will come, and so many times, you know, I mean, we've seen such big people, second, third round, they've not got, right? So yeah, I mean, it's all over every day, and then we see, you know, layoffs happening, and so many things are happening in the world. So having said that, I think we need, this is something, I would say that this is something we need to have a real sit down conversation. Whilst I was saying don't have a sit down conversation all the time with your children, I think this deserves a sit down conversation with the family to say this is what we are headed for, here's what we have, here's how we need to kind of start looking at stuff. Maybe this year we won't go for a this kind of a vacation, maybe we'll see, maybe we can, maybe next year. So all the planning, I think, should be communicated. And please be sure that you involve your family in that plan. So suggestions from them versus coming and saying, now you can't do this, and this, saying that, you know, where can we cut, where can we add. So that financial planning, I think, is a must, because once financial insecurity sets in, if it sets in, Harbinder, that can really be difficult for a family to manage.
So what I hear, Rachna, when you're speaking, is that inclusivity is extremely important. So
Absolutely, and that
yeah,
absolutely, I think that you nailed it, because that's the one word I think I was missing. And you know, even emotional inclusivity.
yeah.
That
So I
there are
think
going to be difficult times, you know, you'll come back dejected, you will need support, extra support at that time. There may be that time when you're super tired, you've done 16 hours and you're saying, I can't go for that shadi or that party with you anymore, please go yourself. So to understand that everything is not personalized also in relationships. So that emotional understanding, EQ, IQ, everything will be needed.
absolutely, and I think what comes to my mind when I'm listening to you is that Inclusivity actually has to happen from the very beginning. When you say preparedness, one is that involve them while you're planning your entrepreneurial stint, and not once you have already become an entrepreneur. You know,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
they should believe that what you are doing is something which is worth trying.
Absolutely.
So that they find that transition worthwhile for the family. And is worth
Correct.
trying. I and we're just going beyond time, and I really want to ask you one last question, since you we were talking
Sure.
about friendship, and this came up twice. This came up twice when we were talking about children, and this the second time it came up when you said you have to surround yourself with good people, and you need to have friends. uh, how do you define friendship? you know uh, And the reason I'm asking you this is because a lot of time parents actually turn around to their child and say that, I do not like this friend of yours. I do not want
Mhm.
you to go meet this child. He's not good for you, right?
Correct.
And there's always a disconnect between what a child feels and what you are telling as a parent.
Hmm.
How do we define friendship to a child for him or her to realize and be empowered, like you said, educated and be informed to make the choices which are going to be good for them?
So, Harbinder, I think we all first, you need to believe what you're telling the child. That's the simple truth. So, I mean, we again, it's leading by example. So, I need to believe what I tell the child, and I personally believe that um, every human being, including me, including everybody around, has some pluses and some minuses. And I think that is what I also need to tell my child, that, it's that famous Airtel ad, Har ek friend zaruri hota hai. I think that's so important. I could have a friend in somebody where one friend could be a friend who could just be a buddy who I go for a walk with. I could have another friend who's interested in my kind of, interests, like a guitar, or whatever, music or something, and, or some games. I could have some friend who's just a friend in that, right? I could have somebody who's a study friend. I could have somebody who's a confidant. I think we also need to help ourselves and children understand that every person's not a confidant, and every time we can't be knocking everybody's door also. Sometimes we need to knock doors, and we should be able to. So we have to have that two-way street. And also, so one is, I think what I'm saying is, one is that, find a friend in everybody, some sort of a friend in everybody. So, you have a ton of friends who you have coffee with, right? So they are coffee friends, right, Harbinder? So then you have some friends who are family friends, because they came to your life because families एक दूसरे को जानते थे, तो फिर दोस्त बन गए, तो कुछ समझ में आए एक दूसरे के बारे में. Some friends are there because of some reason. You became, like you said, you were in a office together, so you became friends. Somebody was there somewhere, someone you met on a train, and you became a friend, right? And some deep friendships happen from there. So one is that not I think, I'm very sure that we need to learn to see the positives in people. Then we'll be able to make friends with a lot of people, right? So one is, help your child see positives in people. Two, every friend is not going to be a support, confidant, listening ear. वो हमेशा आके तुम्हारे साथ खड़े होगा और हमेशा अच्छा ही होगा और तुम्हें कुछ नहीं. हर इंसान हमारी जिंदगी जिंदगी में कुछ ना कुछ सिखा के ही जाता है. इंसानों को आने तो दो सिखाने के लिए. आने घुसना ही नहीं दोगे तो सीखोगे कैसे? So allow and experience exposure. Don't say no. Third, I think we also need to tell our children not to have their hearts on their sleeve,
Right.
because they're little and their hearts get broken fast. So, like I said, every friend is not a confidant. It's okay. अगर वो तुम्हारी बात नहीं सुन रहा, उसने मेरी बात नहीं सुनी, उसको मेरे ने उसने मेरे को वैसे रेसिप्रोकेट, दिस इज वेरी कॉमन. उसने
Hmm.
मुझे रेसिप्रोकेट नहीं किया द वे आई गेव एफर्ट इनटू द फ्रेंडशिप. मॉम दे डिडंट, you know, they, the person doesn't respect me, doesn't, they use big words now, all the kids, so you know, they don't, they don't value my time. And I said, oh, you know what, I feel the same with some friends. No, but the truth is that every person's not going to value you the way you value them.
Yeah.
See it from that lens, value from what you see. So allow people to be in different spaces, different places, different realms, to allow friendships to develop and blossom. And it's okay. And allow, I think the other thing is, accept people the way they are.
Yeah.
At least try, at least try. I'm not saying we can accept completely, but at least try accepting people the way they are. So then you will be able to make loads of different types of friends who are, you know, maybe even from different nationalities, different thought processes. What fun is it going to be if I only, if I am, you know, if I only have friends only from my religion, only from my community, only from people because they like my kind of food, only from people who are only guitarists, only from people who are only chess players. What fun is that going to be? How will I understand life? And I think that also allows us to understand adjustability to human beings when we are able to, you know, learn to be with other people and there and accept them the way they are.
So I picked up two words from here. One is be an allowance, allowance of people into your life, allowance for them to be who they are, allowance for you to accept the people as they are and recognize the good in them, you know. And second is the word where you used in your last sentence called adjusting, right? I'm very tempted to take a liberty to ask you one more question, Rachna, from this word adjusting, and that is, you know, marital relationships. There was a time when we've always had challenges. I'm sure our parents and our ancestors always had disconnect or disagreements in their day-to-day life. I mean, I would believe that, you know, if somebody is living a life very long with each other, there will be disconnects. But there was acceptance, there was adjustment, and walking out of a relationship was not an option, right?
Correct.
You would want to make good at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Today, we are seeing more and more people walking out of the relationship, and we tell them that, you know what, let's just move on. That's
Yeah.
the buzzword that is there today, including the parents saying that, listen, if it is not working out, don't take shit, just move on.
आ जाओ. घर आ जाओ.
What has changed?
I think what has changed is what I was talking about earlier, Harbinder, the individuality over the couple and over the family. I'm not saying be in an abusive marriage, whether it's a, you know, if it's a violent marriage, you know, there's violence or there is emotional abuse or there's infidelity. I'm not saying all of that, but I'm saying I have 80% of couples now coming and saying ki, we're incompatible. Nahi jam raha. People live together. People have been had enough lambe courtships. People have just, I have people sitting in a chuda saying, I'm incompatible. I'm like, give it a try. You know, give it an open minded try. So as a well-known couple therapist, my attempt always remains to patch versus, saying, okay, let's take the other route out. I'm again saying, repeating myself, I'm not saying if you've been abused and you must stick to a bad relationship. I'm not saying that at all. But I feel that if there is some meat, a little bit of meat on the table, I think we can reverse it around. And I've been able to, by God's grace, been able to, turn n number of divorces around, where people have filed in, not just because निभाना है, नहीं, बट जब तक जॉय वापस नहीं आएगा ना वो रिलेशनशिप में, तो आप निभा भी नहीं सकोगे. आजकल पीपल से कि नो, आई डोंट वांट टू बिकॉज ऐसे नहीं हो रहा, वैसे नहीं हो रहा, ये एक्सपेक्टेशन पूरी नहीं हो रही, एटसेट्रा एटसेट्रा. But like I said, somewhere have been the people are also putting the individual selves over the family and over the couplehood. So that needs to be weighed and seen. If you have committed to a relationship, then I think both become essential. You need to see the light, the tolerance aspect, the adjustability aspect. And that's why I even said earlier when you asked the question for the children, I also had that in mind because see, when we people were growing up, we had enough cousins pouring in, out. Pasand hai, nahi pasand hai, you have to share. You have a board exam, you have a cousin staying in your room. Pasand hai, nahi pasand hai, you have to figure it out. Geysers run out of water, you have three people, you have two cousins staying, you have to wait. You have to learn patience to wait. If you're four in a family or some people have popped in, you've gone to somebody's house, you have to have that adjustability कि कोई बात नहीं यार अगर नाश्ते में यही बना है तो ये it's okay, we figure and eat. Now there's no story of that नहीं मेरे को gluten free, less milk, fat, full, this coffee, all that was not there earlier. I'm not saying it's bad, but then it also takes away the adjustability factor, the flexibility. The rigidity is coming in everywhere. The rigidity. I've been that intimacy is inversely proportional to the number of people we have in our lives, right? That's intimacy. But somewhere the the acceptability or the accessibility, the openness, the love with general, I'm talking in general also, will come only with flexibility. Now, like I said, जब मैं लोगों को घुसने ही नहीं दूंगी अपने पेरिफेरी के अंदर, तो मैं see, love is not only about giving, it's also about allowing to receive the love. And वो कहाँ से आएगा जब आप everything, there is for everything you've got a barrier, you've got strong barriers, strong conditioning, strong boundaries, you've got strong pluses and minuses, strong, fantastic to be black and white, but you need the gray for the love to flow in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Rachna, I think that is very well said, that you have to allow for the gray to flow in. And with that, I'd like to conclude this conversation. I mean, I can honestly go on and on. We can have another 2 hours of conversation, and I'm
We'll
really
do it another
enjoying this
time.
conversation. But my Rachna, my takeaways from this, from the two perspective. One, was from the kids and the parents' point of view.
Ji.
I had one question in my mind that can you give me some tips, but I think I got or noted down 5 tips that I got through the conversation. And one was a very strong point. Give suggestions, do not decide for your kids. Second was empathize with them and also empathize with their choices.
Yes.
Third was make them accountable. That will help them become responsible in their life, because it's their attributes and belief systems and values that they will use in every part of whatever they do when they grow up. The fourth was respect their opinion. That was a very, very strong one. And the last was don't mess with their emotions, respect their emotions.
I think don't dismiss them. Don't
dismiss them. They have an emotion, they're going through that. Don't say that ye nahi hota. I mean, what actually brought down, because I'm writing a book on cancer, and one thing that actually came out there was that there's something called toxic positivity.
Yes.
If that somebody is dealing with something, similarly, if a child is dealing with something, you don't say that aise nahi hota yaar, chhod isko aage badh. They're dealing, allow them to deal with it and respect the emotions that they're going through. Now, this is for the kids. And the 3 things that, came out as which was related to marital relationship, but I think that can really work well for entrepreneurial people as well in their relationships. One was that acceptance. Accept people, accept situations, acknowledge them. The second thing, what you said was adjustment. And adjustment, the other word that you used was flexibility. Be flexible. So you're not adjust, because the reason I picked up the word flexible over adjustment was because
yes, certainly.
आप एडजस्ट तभी करोगे अगर आपके अंदर फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी है, that you're
Correct.
okay with somebody else's choices as well.
Absolutely.
And the last one is very powerful one, that be in allowance. Like, receive people, receive love, receive emotions, and that is when you would, जो आपने बात करी कि आप अपने दायरे में अपनी बाउंड्री क्रिएट करते हैं, अपना दायरा बढ़ा भी सकते हो, अपना बाउंड्री
Correct.
stand भी कर सकते हो. You know, I remember when there's this game where you make a circle and you stand within that, but if you want two people to stand in that circle, you have to expand the circle,
Yeah, beautifully said.
right? So with that, gratitude to you for taking our time. This is such a beautiful conversation. I really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it, and I'm
Me
sure,
too, Harbinder. And
I'm
I
sure,
just like to, yeah, it was wonderful and was such a beautiful heart-to-heart connect. And one thing I'd like to end by saying, like, while I heard you rephrase what I was saying, we've been reading ever since I've been reading ever since a teenager. I've been reading from Khalil Gibran, who has a beautiful, thing about where he says that your kids are only like arrows, no, you have to let them go, and you have to give them also you have to give them strong roots and wings to fly, right?
yeah,
And you hear any spiritual person today, the first thing, you go anywhere, you listen to Brahma Kumari Shivani, you listen to Sadhguru, you listen to Shri, only one thing everybody says is, we don't own them. Just because we've given birth to them, we don't own them. So that aspect, what we were talking about, give them suggestions and not directions, because I don't own anybody. If I don't own them, where am I going to give them the direction? I can only give them a suggestion. They're an independent human being. I think learn to understand that.
absolutely, absolutely. Rachna, thank you so much. It was such
Thank
a
you.
beautiful
Thank
conversation, and I'm going to take you on that offer of we need to have this conversation once more
Certainly.
on something else. Thank you so
Yes.
much.